Welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We have return guest Lin Eleoff, who is going to be talking to us about Mighty Tiny Books and the Mighty Tiny Book Academy, where Lin teaches coaches, consultants, and course creators how to write a book to market their business. But hold on a second, it's not just any book. We are talking about a book that is less than 100 pages and is designed to turn readers into paying clients, which is basically a business card on steroids. So Lin, glad to be talking to you. Glad to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's been a while, but oh my gosh, so much to talk about.
So much to talk about and catch up on. And I had a quick look at your website, which for our listeners is LinEleoff. And, you know, a lot of people like talk about books and wish they had a book. But what I like about your process here is that it seems very doable, right? A lot of people, and also something that you said on your webpage is don't go for the book sales, go for the turning them into coaching clients, right? Don't try to sell 1 million books, sell books to the right people, and then turn that into finding those handful of people that pay money. So yeah, you feel like jumping in and telling us about the Mighty Tiny Books and what we need to know?
So here's the thing. If your goal in life is to write a bestseller and sell millions of books, and that's how you want to make money, that's one thing. But if you have a business that you want to generate income, then you can use a book, a nonfiction book, to attract your ideal readers on a topic that you're an expert on, and then have the book, which is like an employee working for you, and its job is to turn those readers into paying clients. Now, a lot of people will say to me, "Oh my goodness, you know, I'd love to write a book, but I don't, the thought of writing hundreds of pages is so daunting, and so they don't do it." Or they say, "But I'm not a writer. I have something to say, but I'm not a writer." And then the third thing is, which is really not true, is I don't have anything to say or I don't know what to write about. Like, we can overcome that. But a Mighty Tiny Book overcomes all of those objections like this. First of all, it's a book that's 50 pages, maybe 100 if you really want it to be, but it's easy to write because you know the subject matter. So in that regard, no brainer. And so many people come to me and saying, all I have to do is 50 to 100 pages. I know I can do that. But what about the fact that I'm not a writer? Well, here's the thing. You're not writing a Harry Potter style book, right? You're not writing fiction, which is meant to be more entertaining. There is a writing style involved. But with this kind of book, a nonfiction book that's about your business, you're providing information, maybe some entertainment. If you've got that type of personality and you like to play around with your writing, that's fine. You can do that in a nonfiction book, but it's not required. If the information holds up, if people are learning from what you're teaching them in the book, they will just keep on turning the pages. And then by the time they get to the last page, they're like, how do I get more? How do I work with you? That's the idea. And that's what we teach people to do in Mighty Tiny Book Academy. And here's the thing, Robert, it's actually really fun, because when you think about when you design your Mighty Tiny Book, you have to start really thinking about your messaging, which is related to your business. You have to think about your ideal client, and in this case, an ideal reader, which of course is related to your business, the ideal client. So everything, you're forced to kind of bring it all together. And from that, when you have that done, oh my goodness, it becomes so much easier to create content. Like I tell people, there's content in there that you can repurpose for a year, in emails, in blog posts, and podcast topics. All of that is in the book, and it makes life a whole lot easier.
And there's so many good things in there that you mentioned. And as you're explaining all that, what came to mind is back in school, when they said, write a paper on the subject, I would be completely stuck. But when they said, write a paper that's 2 pages, suddenly the gears began turning. Suddenly I began thinking about, okay, well, if it's this small length, I can't fit that in, but I can fit this in. And then if I have this, I should probably have this before. And it's like, just by having the limit on the length, that like it begins to take shape, and it suddenly becomes more doable. And you think about like a TV show or a movie, there's always like deleted scenes, or like there's things that they could have added in there, but there's a reason why they started where they did. There's a reason why they started with the action. So it's like the way you're putting it is it works good for both sides, right? It's like it's easy for you to write, but then what's really important are the people who are reading your books. And you said make it a page turner. Don't make it like fiction where you sit down and you enjoy it and you read Harry Potter book 6 and you've been at it for 6 months. Like if someone has a real problem and they're reading your nonfiction book in 6 months, it's too late. You want them to get there quickly. And I really like how you said kind of leave them wanting more. Make it where it's short, to the point, and it's a page turner, but by the end they're like, oh my gosh, I want more, I want to contact you. And it seems like that's really missing, right? A lot of people are just going through the motions, making a book and not really knowing like why they're doing it or what it leads to. But this seems like a clear roadmap for people.
Well, and you say roadmap, that is, I think that's what's key, Robert. Like when we have direction, then it's easy to start, oh, I know how to say, I know that topic, I know how to talk about that. So, but when you're just told write a book, it's like, how? But when you have a process to follow, it becomes much easier. And also what you said is people don't want the kitchen sink thrown at them. They have a problem, they want it solved. How do you solve it? So that's the unique thing. Like we put your unique twist on it. What is unique about you and the way you teach this? Because people will say, oh, I went on Amazon, that book's already been written 100 times. No, that is not the approach. And if that were the approach, then we would not have, I don't know the exact number, Robert, but it's like millions of books every year. So don't tell me they're all brand new topics that have never been written about before. Of course not, but they have a spin, the good ones. There's a new spin, a new perspective, a new way to look at things. And so when you take your expertise and put it into a book, and you take someone from page 1 where they're feeling their problem into the end of the book where it's not that their problem is solved, but they have hope that, oh my gosh, there is a way to do this. I've learned some things in this book, and if I really want to take it further, this book tells me what to do. So this really is like, I call it like a business card on steroids, because people don't, like if you hand out a business card, people are not paying attention. But if you have a really cool book and a cool title that's eye-catching, then people are going to pay attention. And then if they read it and they go through your process, think of it this way. If you were to read a book about how to ride a bike, you get it. Like, it's like, oh, I see. But now I have to go out and do it. And that's when they're going to turn to you and say, can you actually teach me how to ride this bike, like in real life, as opposed to like, I get the concept, but now we have to do it. So think of your book like that. It's a book about what you know and what you want to share, how to ride a bike. But then they're going to have to come to you to really do the work of riding a bike.
And when you're like explaining that and using like the example of riding the bike, what comes to mind is there's like the straightforward, obvious part of the book, which is like the facts, right? The information. And then you said in there that it's important, it's important, but like not 100% required to put yourself in it, and or at least add some uniqueness. And that's something that it's been really on my mind like the last 5 to 10 years, is like sprinkling in the fun stories and the encouragement and like getting people excited. And you said in there, like, give them hope. And so have you ever struggled with that, or do your clients do? Because that's always the thing where it doesn't seem like it's always like a straightforward approach. It seems like sometimes we like have to maybe attack the problem in different ways, like start with some stories and see if they fit, or see if stories come in later. I mean, is this a common problem? Is trying to add the fun, the stories, uniqueness, so that way it's not just super dry?
Well, first of all, stories are always impactful. Like whether you're saying, look, I was where you are right now. I used to be there, and this is how it impacted my life. And they're reading, wow, that I can relate to that. He's been through what I went through. And then you talk about how you worked through the process. Now they're thinking, whoa, I'd never thought of it that way, or nobody's ever talked about it that way. And so I'm in. And then by the end, they're like, yes, I'm in, and I want to work with you. So the thing that a lot of the biggest mistake that I think people make, and I made this mistake for so long, and sounds like kind of what you were saying, Robert, about like, what am I talking about? What's my message? What should I be putting out into the world? And we try this and we try that and we throw spaghetti. And I think the biggest mistake we make is that we give all the information out, right? Like, so we always hear, just give it all away, give it away for free. And I totally disagree with that. I agree that we need to be giving things away for free, but not everything. So the stuff that you're giving away for free, like what you would put in this book, for example, you would have a strong message. So for example, with this book, my message is you don't have to write hundreds of pages for your book. You don't have to be a writer. You just have to tap into your expertise. And I'm going to show you why that's important and why you need to do this and how that's going to be good for your business. Now, in the book, were I to write a book, a mighty tiny book about how to write a mighty tiny book, I would highlight all the things about why this is a good idea, kind of like what we're doing now, but we're not getting into the nitty gritty how to do it. Like page 1 is going to be about this, and then chapters, and it wouldn't be the exact how to. That's what you teach. That's what people pay you to teach them. So what you're doing, and this is no less valuable, is you're pointing out to them like what this problem is, what it has cost them, and like it cost you in your own life. What happens if we don't solve this problem? And then what is the process that I use or you might use in your program to take people through? But just like it's not possible to teach someone how to actually ride the bike until we get on the bike, the book is pretty much the same way. We're teaching them how and why and what's important, but you got to work with me to really nail this thing down. Sure, you can go out and try to do it on your own, but we've all tried that before. And we know that when we're working with someone, we do get the best results when someone is guiding us through and holding us accountable to our own deadlines and goals. It really is an entirely different process. Like, have you had coaches or anyone, mentors, who when you're working with them, it's a whole different experience?
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like anytime you took any class in school,
Yep.
imagine even one of the easiest classes you took, if you
Yep.
had to learn that from a book, you might not have
Yep.
passed.
Right. And I remember too, in math class, everything was explained in the textbooks, but when I had a teacher that could go to the blackboard and explain it in ways that I was like, I just understood this most complicated thing. Because, and I had a teacher that did this with math, and she was extraordinary. And I learned so much. I realized I was really good at math if someone just would teach me the right way. So absolutely, when you have a coach, a teacher, an expert who really knows what they're doing and they're guiding you through the process, now you take what you learned in the book and you implement it in your life.
And I mean, it took me so many years to realize that sometimes I'm asking the wrong questions. And it's easy to
Mhm.
think that, okay, well,
Mhm.
here's the question, here's the answer. But if you're like looking for the wrong thing, or even like, that whole like riding a bike analogy,
Yeah.
let's say if it just jumped into like, here's how you start pedaling. You're like, well, wait a second. Do I need to know about like balancing or a kickstand or like types of bikes to look for? And if
What
I
about the
don't
seat?
know, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, there's so many
exactly.
unknowns. And it's like, and like sometimes I'm asking the wrong question and I'm wasting all this time looking up this thing that's either not important at all or might be an issue later on down the road. Maybe it's time just to start riding the bike with the training wheels and then worry about balance later. So
Yes.
there's kind of like the order of importance issue there, where you might even be unknowingly setting yourself up for failure if you're doing all these wrong things first and you're going down the wrong path. And like you said, like with the right teacher, sometimes solving the math problem with this correct way is the way to do it. And so what I'm getting from you is there's like all these different approaches. Like even the way that you described some of these things, what came to mind was like objections, right? What reasons, what roadblocks would someone put in their own way from stopping them from riding the bike or losing weight or something like that. And so it seems like you're kind of like empathizing with their problem
Right.
and then kind of getting ahead of it. And then something that I'm going to really file away for storage later that you said there is like put it in a new way that they hadn't even
Absolutely.
thought of it before, to kind of break them out of their own thinking.
Right. I mean, so for example, on a bigger picture, what I want is for people to have their own businesses, to become entrepreneurs and have the freedom that we all long for, right? And I think the best way to do that is to be your own boss. So people think, okay, I'm going to start my own business. So what do? The first thing they do, or many of them, is they start a website. And then they'll come to me and say, but nobody's coming to my website. And I look at the website and I'm like, no kidding, nobody's coming to your website. What were you thinking? It's like saying, I'm going to ride a bike and I'm, 5 feet tall, and I go to a store and I buy a bike that's meant for a man that's 6'2". Then I can't figure out why I can't ride this bike, because I haven't done my homework. I haven't laid the foundation for what I need to accomplish the goal. And there's so many misconceptions about how to start a business or how to do anything, right? Until we really find the answers and the step-by-step, like do this first. Don't do anything first. Like for me, I tell people, don't even think about a website or posting on social media for business purposes until you know what your message is. Like, what is that thing that makes you distinct? Otherwise, you'll come out of the gate and you will blend in. and they'll go, oh, there's just another one, talking about coaching or whatever. And we don't want to blend in. We want to have a message that people go, huh, whoa. And I'll tell you, everybody that's out there who has created a successful business, that's what they've got. And if you pay attention, you'll catch it. Like, what do they say differently that attracts me to them? And that's another point too. They won't attract everybody, but they will attract their ideal audience because they know how to talk in a way that people will listen. And so I always say that's the very first thing you have to learn how to do, is learn to talk in a way that makes people, your ideal audience, listen. Figure that out, and everything else is super easy.
And even like I think of these people that really get a lot of attention, that have a huge following. They alienate they alienate the people they don't want, right? They're not afraid to, like, they don't purposefully get people angry, but they make a stand. They say, this is
polarize.
not
Yeah.
my kind. Yeah, they polarize. They're
Yep.
saying, I don't like this, or I'm against that. Don't do it this way. And the people that are left over are those big kind of raving fans. And so when you say these things like, you help people overcome not being a writer, and kind of like teasing out all of their sort of their uniqueness and those things that they have. Let me think about this. How do I phrase this? Man, I just blanked a little bit. So like when people are not, when they usually think that they're not writers, it's like, if like they're, you notice things as a coach that, number one, they might have the blind spots and they might not see, or they might not have the confidence to really like make this talk about their struggles, talk about their mistakes in the past. Like it's like if you're just going in alone, it seems like the way you're talking about this, there's the tendency to play it safe and blend in. And there's been so many times when there was something that was easy for me, like a computer thing or something, and when I showed it to someone, they were like, that's the most amazing thing. Or they would be stuck on something simple, and I was like, if you click this button, you can get this problem solved. And so it's like, if we're trying to do it alone without this outside coach, we'll miss so much without someone like you.
Yeah, and what we miss out on really is the someone who can be have a sort of a neutral stance when self-doubt takes over us, right? Because we all have self-doubt, and the self-doubt is what makes us say, no, that's not for me, or, oh, I'm too busy, I'm not ready, I'll do it next year, next week, whatever it is. That's just self-doubt. That's the way you think. You're protecting yourself, because if you go out and do the thing, you might fall flat on your face. And I always say, oh my goodness, like, worse than falling flat on my face is the regret I'm going to feel at the end of my life for not doing those things. Like, that's worse than falling on my face. So I'd rather fall on my face, pick myself up, figure it out, get it right, move on, so that by the time I get to the end of my life, I'm like, well done, gutsy girl. You did all the things you said that you wanted to do. And so I think that it's that balancing between, I don't know how to write a book, and so I'm not going to write a book, versus, I don't know how to write a book, but I'm going to figure it out. Because that's what we all know how to do, is figure things out. Or if we really don't know what we're doing, we can get help so that we can figure it out. That's all we really need to feel confident about. And then the rest comes into play. And again, you know, telling yourself, but I'm not a writer, is flawed thinking, because who says you, first of all, what is your definition of a writer? And who says you have to be that definition to write this kind of book? So, I mean, I love getting into it with people when they throw these obstacles at me. And then, you know, we get to the bottom is, I'm afraid to put it out there. I'm afraid of people. What if my mom thinks I'm crazy for writing this book? Like, all these things that are really at play. And that's why I say, you know, starting your business or writing a book or anything difficult like this, I call it an AFGO, another freaking growth opportunity, because it throws all these things at us, and it brings all our fears to the surface. And so the opportunity is for us to learn and grow and become, you know, better versions. And I say that respectfully, but, you know, more evolved versions of who we are today. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does. I mean,
Yep.
every time that we go and do something new and take a risk and go to a new address or meet a new person, there's
Yep.
always that fear, but that's a good thing to have. And so you're saying that there's like if you look at like the where you are in life now and then like the end of your life, like that's the whole equation. And a lot of people are missing or not thinking about the end of life regret that they would have of not having this book. And there's also kind of like the cause and effect here of the procrastination is really self-doubt, which is really your body protecting itself. And it's like, by hearing it that way, it's more reassuring, right? It means that we're not alone in this. There's nothing wrong with you if you have the self-doubt, but it's something that's inevitably going to creep in. It won't last forever, but it's a thing that it will happen. And we need that safety net. We need like a coach or some kind of a support system to get us out of that pothole in the road. Because if we don't, then you'll just give up right there and get distracted by something else. And so people really need your program, and they need to have a Mighty Tiny Book, and they need to join the Mighty Tiny Book Academy. So can you tell us about this program and what it is and its uniqueness and why they need this instead of trying to go about it themselves? Because how's that been working out for you?
So what we do in Mighty Tiny Book, and this is how I approach, and this is my underlying message for anything that I put out into the world, is that this is an opportunity for your own personal growth. Yes, it's to build your business, but your business is there for your own personal growth if you approach it that way, which is, you know, people who are drawn to me want to approach it that way. Other people will say, she's nuts, I'm not working with her, that doesn't even make any sense. So I'm okay with that. That's polarizing, right? Like, if all you want is to start a business and make a lot of money or sell a lot of books so you can make a lot of money, I'm not your gal. I mean, that's just not, but cool, you know, it's nice to meet you. But if you're working with me, we're going to get into like, why is this book important to you? And then how does self-doubt get in the way of what you really want to say and share with the world? And if you could think of those people who are just waiting for you in this book, and that you could help them, heal them, solve the problem, whatever it is, like, can you keep that in the front of your mind so that when self-doubt comes up, and it will, just like, you know, it's going to rain in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and you don't say, oh my gosh, it's raining outside. You expect it to rain. That's how I think of self-doubt. It comes up, and then I do what I need to do when I go into self-doubt, which is kind of like putting up an umbrella. When it's raining, like, we have tools. And so all through the process, as we're dealing with self-doubt and putting it in its right place, we're going through the process of, what is it that I want to say? What framework do I want to use to teach? Or maybe you already have one. Like, oftentimes people come in, they already have a process that they teach, and we turn that into a book. And if you don't have a framework, we create it in a book, and then you take that framework and it becomes your coaching program, a 6-week program, a 6-month program, an entire year program. That's what you can get out of this book. So it's not just a book that you could say, hey, I wrote a book. It's like, hey, I wrote this book. I believe it can help you. And when you go through this, I'm going to follow up with you, and we're going to go through what's the next step. Some people will absolutely want to go on and work with you. And what better way is there to, get people to get to know you, rather than just a freebie that you put up and they might or might not be interested, but a book really catches their attention. And that alone sets you apart, Robert, because it's like, not everybody writes a book. So if you're weighing it between two coaches and you're not sure which one, and it's like, yeah, but this one wrote a book, that's instant authority, instant credibility, and an opportunity for you to shine.
And like we said at the beginning, there are so many books out there, but some of those books are old. Some of those books have been out there for years. This is a brand new, hot off the presses, cutting edge information. And this is something that it seems like you have a whole, like, a kind of sort of follow-up system, right?
Yeah.
Like this book comes with you're building a list, you have a sequence, and another way that that people that follow your program will have an advantage over other people is that there's this whole like the seeking the right audience kind of
Yes.
concept here of, instead of trying to appeal to everyone, you're singling out these ideal sorts of people, and you're adding your own uniqueness. So there are a lot of maybe factors that people have been overlooking,
Yes.
that have been causing them to not want the book. But like, there's all these cool, exciting things. There's a framework that you might even know you have. There's all kinds, and also, I mean, have you noticed this, that your book kind of at a certain point, not right away, not at the halfway point, but at like 63%, it kind of takes on a life of its own, right? At a certain point, when you're like not quite done, but almost there, you're like, this thing I've created, it's different than what I had when I started.
Yes.
And then by the time it's done, you're like, it's like a completely different perspective. I don't know how to even describe it.
Well, I think it's like, if you were going to climb a mountain and you go halfway up and you're like slugging along, and you turn around and you look at how far you've gone, you're like, holy smokes, I'm awesome. I did that. And and that just gives you the impetus to want to keep going, right? It's like, I already did that, and I just want to keep going. Kind of like what you said earlier too. It's like, if I write just 2 pages of that essay, and now I want to expand on it because the teacher said I had to have 5. Now you can go in and say, I can add something here. I can add something there. I need a stronger conclusion. I can put more up front. So in a way, when we write, your lousy first draft, even it can often be only 20 to 25 pages. And it's like, okay, I'm done. And you can either hand it off to one of our editors, or you can just put it away for a few days, and then you come back to it and you say, oh, I missed this part. I forgot all about this thing that I teach people. I need to put that somewhere. And so sure enough, soon you're at like 50 pages. It's amazing how much you have inside you that you don't realize until you start pulling it out.
And it seems more manageable once you make progress. And then you, like you said, you can just then focus on small, mighty tiny problems for your mighty tiny book. Work on just the conclusion chapter, or just on adding this other thing that I forgot about. It seems like it's easier to chip away at this one bite at a time, and then also keep things realistic, doable, short book. That way it gets done in a reasonable amount of time, and that way we're still excited about it, right? Because if it took 6 years to make a book, I mean, who knows knows what's even going to happen in 6 years?
I
You would be
know.
so completely over it. But if it can be done in a quick, a reasonable amount of time, you see some results, and then you're not super tired, right? You didn't use up all your energy making a book. Now you say, I still have energy left where I can market this thing and get the word out and sell some copies. So what is the next step here? People say, I love this idea. I want to join Mighty Tiny Book Academy. I want to take the next step. Where do they go? What do they do?
mightytinybookacademy.com. That's it. It's all laid out there. It gives you everything you need to know about this program and the way we walk you through it. We absolutely can get you to write a book in 90 days. 50-page book is not that difficult to do. And again, we're not saying this is a shortcut. This is absolutely an impactful book, but you don't need more than 90 days to write a 50-page or a 40-page book. And if you're telling yourself, I don't have time, or I can't do it, or it's too daunting, then notice that's just code for self-doubt has creeped in again and is trying to thwart your best laid plans of doing what you want to do in the world.
And you've seen it all before. If the self-doubt creeps in, like you said, it's like the rain. We've seen it so many times in our life. We know it's coming. We know it won't last forever. There are tools like the umbrella to ride out of it, and then you continue on, but don't let it ruin your whole day. So mightytinybookacademy.com. Any final parting words of advice as we wrap up, wind down here?
I think that, the overall advice that I always have for people is to not understand or recognize the two different voices in your head. Recognize when the one voice is telling you, you shouldn't do this, you can't do this, you're just way too busy to do anything else. Like, that is all baloney. And listen to the voice in your head that's connected to your heart that's saying, but I really want this. I really want this. And everybody's telling me why it's not a good idea. My own head is telling me, but I really want this. And so we need to honor that. However, in whatever fashion we may choose to honor that, we need to pay attention to that part of ourselves that wants what it wants, and it doesn't always make sense. And so, but that's how we get to the end of our life and we say, well done, well done.
It reminds me of the cartoons where the devil pops up on one shoulder and then the angel pops up on the other, and it's like, which will you listen to? The one that will help you or the one that will hurt you? I mean, it seems like an easy decision. I have a name for mine,
Robert. One's Laverne and the other is Shirley.
Nice.
Maybe
Laverne
we should all
name ours.
Beat me up, and Shirley's like, come on, let's do it. So, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, the place to go is mightytinybookacademy.com. Go there right now. Don't wait. How long have you been waiting for you having your own book? Go drop everything you're doing. You can spend 2 minutes and just get the browser window open, get it open on your phone. If you're driving, pull over and at least write it down, mightytinybookacademy.com. Go there. You'll be glad you did. And Lynn, thanks for taking the time, showing up, and giving us some awesome content. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.